Good evening. In just a couple of seconds, we're going to be started with tonight's show. It's Orange and Blue Blood Thursday. Orange, Blue, Blood. Come and join us and talk about the things of the Gator family. This is a night where we get a little more intimate. And if you're a Gator fan or not a Gator fan, perhaps you're a fan of college football and watching on YouTube or whatever, it's okay. Come and join us and make comments. We love having people come in and visit our site on Gator Bay and then come to our show. I'm Buddy Martin. The program is the Buddy Martin Show. Orange and Blue Blood Thursday is coming your way right now. Tell your friends and neighbors to gather around. We are on the air.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ? I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome to the Orange and Blue Blood Show. I am Buddy Martin. The program is on the air 4 nights a week. Orange and Blue Blood's only on Thursdays. So all you Gator fans, let's hear from you tonight out there in whatever platform you're on, YouTube or Twitter. Love to hear from you. Just make a comment. David Baldolph's already logged in. Dilly to you. Shortly we'll have Ben Troupe with us. And tonight we're going to get a little bit more serious on a topic. I have a column now which is posted on GatorBait for those of you who take GatorBait, and for those who don't, that way you ought to be taking it. Go to GatorBaitMedia.com and find out why people love what we have, including Franz Beard and our young reporters, which you heard on last night. One of them up and coming, and Matt Quadraro, and quite often Kyle Curtis, who's been with the program now in the show, in the magazine for 2 years. So, plus Dan Bond is weighing in. He's got a story tonight posting right now, I think, on the softball win, big win for the Gator softball team, winning tonight and advancing, beating Kentucky, sending Kentucky home. And Scholar had a big night, so maybe we'll hear more about that later. And it's always a good night when you beat the Yankees. Right now, the Rays are up on them 5-0. It's in I think it's the 7th inning, yeah. So bouncing back from those 2 losses in Baltimore. So they kind of have owned the Yankees, and they won the last series just last week. And tonight on the mound, Rasmussen got them started off to a good one, and they're sticking it to the boys from the Bronx. So all of that. In my column tonight, I discuss this topic. I want your thoughts, folks. Let me say good evening to Dan Bond and AJ Rowe and all you folks. Here's what it says. Am I a fool to think that one day old-fashioned teamwork ethic concepts will reward those who mix it in with their artificial intelligence and analytical genius? That's the question, and it is, what price are championships? Can money buy one? Because I don't think it can. And what will it take for Florida? Some encouraging comments lately I've heard from Billy Napier. Today, he made a couple of comments, one of them about his quarterback, I'll tell you about later, and also about the fact that I think he's beginning to realize, you know what? My partner Franz has been saying this for a while, and Franz will join us tonight along with Loren Meadows, that he likes it under the radar. He's so far under that we don't know exactly what's going on, but in his talk up in Northwest Florida to the Panhandle Gator Club, he made some comments about his quarterback, and there's a certain air of confidence that I think I'm seeing in him, and he's beginning to share that which is what I've been asking for quite some time. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and hear from our sponsor, give Ben Troupe a chance to get organized. I know he's got tonight. I know he's got the log on. I know that. And we'll come right back. And we got lots more. Don't go away. Tell your friends to come join tonight. Let's have a conversation right here on Orange and Blue Blood Thursdays.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life. And the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
All right, thanks very much, Jeff Cardozo. There's the number right there, and highly recommend these people. They do a fine job, and you get a good price and everything else. So check it out. All right, Ben Troupe's in the house, Orange and Blue Room. I'm going to ask him about it. I know he did a couple of shows this week. I don't want to overrate this, but just in the last few days, with things I've heard about recruiting, I've heard about evaluations. And I heard Billy make a very important point tonight, and my friend Zach Alba already wrote about it on On3, and it's a very good point. And when we talk about Graham Mertz, like he's some damaged goods, Billy didn't say that. That's my words. But, I mean, Billy says, I doubt there are very many quarterbacks who started 32 games. Boom. There's one to think about. Experience does matter. Right, Ben Troupe?
That it does. And you got Billy Napier makes a great point, though, buddy, when he says that, right? What's the one thing we said about Anthony Richardson in 2022? He's the only quarterback that was in a first-year system. Stetson Bennett, second-year system. Hendon Hooker, second-year system. C.J. Stroud, Caleb. I mean, you talk about Bryce Young. The thing about Graham Hurst is this. Once again, we have to say this every show. You looking at where he went, not who wanted him. Kirby Smart wanted him. Dabo Swinney wanted him. Right? All these Nick Saban wanted him. Give the young man credit for looking at the quarterback depth chart and saying to himself, where can I go to play early? And I think the thing is, too, buddy, is I think Graham Hurst, not Graham Hurst, he's realizing, not saying he be reading the news clippings or being on social media. You know how much scrutiny comes with being the potential starting quarterback of Florida?
Well, of course. And it's everything, yeah.
So I give Billy Napier a lot of credit for saying, how many guys have 32 starts, though?
Yeah. That's what I've been wanting to hear out of him. And I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I want to hear him take a position on things like that. Defend his quarterback. Give us something to hang our hats on. And that was a very positive. I say, okay, I can work with that. Yeah, that's a great point, right?
It is a great point, and it's hard to be disputed. Not too many quarterbacks in college going to play 32, going to have 32 starts. Not 32 games, 32 starts. And
yes.
The thing about Graham is Florida wasn't the only team that wanted him. So it was other teams that wanted him to come play for them. But he said, hey, man, I'm just looking at what could boost my resume in the SEC, in the SEC East, being able to go out there and, be this guy that want to show this is how the Billy Napier offense is going to run. You can't really go up into the Richardson because you're not going to have, those type of plays called for a quarterback like you would for Anthony Richardson. But what Billy Napier is showing people too, I'm pretty good at this head coach thing. I always know things that y'all don't know. I can say one thing and go, oh, that's right. Because the thing about it is yes, we're going to have talking points. Yes, we want to know because obviously when you talk about much to be imagined, that spring game, outside of the defense, wasn't really much to talk about with the headlines going to Xavier Henderson transferring when the spring game was over.
Right.
But if you are Graham Hurst, it's like this. I just want to, and I'm not comparing the two, by the way. Let me preface this.
All right.
Nobody was talking about Joe Burrow when he first got to LSU. Nobody saw that next year. How do I know? The same Joe Burrow came to Florida. They had a pick six for a touchdown, and that's how Florida beat them. He comes back the next year. But once again, being familiar. And I do agree. You know, when you talk about the University of Florida, it comes down to one thing, buddy. You have more losses than wins. Period. And once that happens, it's over. Once you go 6-7, it's like, okay, everybody that has something to say about, quote, you know, Sunbelt Billy is coming. They're coming out the roast, and I get that part. I get it. But at the same time, you know, you are what your record says you are. Graham is the guy that I think is going to be the starter. Jack Miller is probably going to be the backup. But buddy, when people talk about you know, Billy Napier doing his speaking tour, going around holding court, when he said that, right, that silences the room. How many quarterbacks got 32 starts? What? Yeah. So in a sense, he's telling a lot of these people asking them questions, I'm gonna go back and forth with y'all, man, because that's my job. My job is to answer y'all questions, but I can silence y'all at any time. Because you go back to the SEC last year, KJ Jefferson, multiple years in the same system, right? You talk about Stetson Bennett, Will Levis, Bryce Young, and the list goes on and on. Will Rogers, multiple years in the same system. I get we got a brand new quarterback, but he's been in college football. 32 starts. That means I know how to implement. I know how to pick up and implement what they're trying to do in the offense. I get what they're. The hardest thing about college is figuring out what my talent means to this team and how do I fit. Not can I fit. I can fit. How do I fit in this scheme? Graham understands that. Graham knows it's like this. Malik Willis got drafted in the second round in 2022. It's the preseason. He's coming out of Liberty. Second round pick. Buddy, they told him in the headset, I don't care what the defense shows. I want you to throw it. It was all out blitz. He ran. They took him out. The reason why they took him out, because they said, you do what we tell you to do. I told you to throw it, but because you're so athletic, I'm going to make a play. Get out. Because you're not doing it with Graham, that's not going to happen. Yeah. If they tell Graham,
he'll follow directions.
And sometimes, buddy, that's all a quarterback is, hey, man, the best quarterback on the team, he does what he's coached to do. He's not going to put the team in bad situations, and he's going to make plays with his feet when he has to. That's Graham. I'm looking forward to – I think that's Jack, by the way. I think that's Jack Miller. But, buddy, it's like this. If Buddy Martin is getting ready to hire, you know, a journalist, the one with experience is going to get – he's going to get a little bit more consideration than the brand new guy. Doesn't mean that the brand new guy can't do it. But the brand new guy, all he can do is say, yes, Mr. Martin, because he don't know what you're talking about. The other guy can say, yeah, you talking about when you're doing this. So experience matters, people. Experience matters. I like what he said about Graham. I like what you just said, buddy. He's finally starting to show a little oomph. Like, hey, man,
he
let me get you all off a little bit.
Yeah, he is. Let me read you this quote here. I got this from the – excuse me if I interrupted because you're on a roll. I don't want to stop you. But this is a quote he gave to the people in Panhandle. And I dropped it in my column today, in which he says, nobody wants to go more than me. We're talking about hundreds of people contributing to your team. There's a lot to do, and we're up and running. We've got our systems built, and I think we've hired a phenomenal group of people. We lost 5 games by essentially 1 score last year, right? So year 2, let's go win some of these close games. And I'm confident in our process and look forward to year 2. And year 2 would be when he's loaded. He's going to be top 5 in the country in recruiting. And it's like I said, harken back to the days when the old-time Gator fans used to say, wait till next year. Well, their next year is going to be 2024. If you can just bite on something for the rest of this year and get through. Maybe you win 7. If you have a great year, you win 8, and you're set up for the following year. That's what he's talking about. That's what he's planning.
And buddy, I think the thing is, you know, when you talk about a guy like Billy Napier, we act like this. Billy Napier has been a head coach. He's still learning how to get comfortable in his position. Being a head coach, and I'm not knocking Louisiana by no means. It is not the same thing as Florida. It is not. You go from being one of the best coaches in college football to being one of the most well-known and famous coaches. You the head coach of Florida, everybody knows you. And I'm not just talking about in the state of Florida. There go Billy Napier right there. His life dramatically, when he got off that plane at Gainesville Airport, his life dramatically changed. And sometimes, buddy, as a player, I had to get used to it. I had to realize, dude, they don't know you because you. They know you because of what you represent. You play at Florida. That stuff means, and that means something for life, not just when you're there. So I think with Billy Napier, he's understanding. I'm watching one of my favorite podcasts with the Pivot with Channing Crowder and Franz.
I know you guys like that. I haven't heard it.
They're interviewing The Rock. They're interviewing The Rock. They asked The Rock, what was his biggest pivot? They asked him this. He said, when I first got to Hollywood, he said the three biggest stars was Johnny Depp, George Clooney, and Will Smith. He said, these people told me, you don't look like none of them. You need to lose weight and do all these things. So like most of us, buddy, he tried to do that. Problem was, hey, man, I'm just naturally a big dude. I can't maintain this weight, and I don't look or sound like myself. So he said, I fired everybody, and I got a whole new staff. And he said, if I fail, I'm going to fail being me.
Bet on yourself. Bet on yourself.
That is what Billy Napier is realizing. Listen, nobody wants him to succeed more than this man I'm talking to and myself. We want him to succeed. But he is saying, if I don't, I'm going to be me. So if I'm going to be me to win, I'm going to be me to lose. Yes, I'm not going – everybody ain't going to like me. My methodology is not going to be, appreciated by everybody. But, buddy, look at how he's talking from year one to year two.
Yeah.
Real passive in year one, like kind of let things go, give us the coach speak. And somebody got in his ear and said, dude, you better – this wave of criticism is not going to slow down. You went 6-7. So what you had last year is going to pick up. And you ain't with the SEC Media Days yet. You're going to have to get comfortable in your skin to kind of – I know it. Listen, I know coach speak. They get real good at it. But you're going to have to taper on the line of truth and perception. You're going to have to taper on or live in the middle. And I think he's doing that. But that's why it goes back to what me and you be saying. Him sitting down with you, I don't think he understands that you humanize him. Like, look, man, I want to talk to you because – right now, I write off Billy Napier based off what I see, what I hear. I don't know him, so I got to based off what I see. But if I sit down with him for an hour or two, I get to say, "Oh, okay." I can kind of see the moxie. I can kind of see the charisma, and I'll never understand that as a former player because I always knew I didn't have to understand the media to understand that they were my voice. They were my voice between me and the world. That's how I get my stuff out. And I think for Billy Napier. I don't know if he's going to change his ways because I heard how he does with practice and all this. Look, man, we got access to you. How much access you give is up to him, but I do know that in year two, I think he's understanding that, dude, you better learn how to use your words as fists or you're going to get beat up. They're going to beat you up in the meeting. And I get it. He has to take most of it, but you can fight back a little bit. I was coached by Ron Zook for 2 years. I know Ron Zook did one thing.
He'll fight you back.
He did not miss words. I don't care what that record says. I could have lost every game. I lost to Mississippi State. He lost to Mississippi State. That's why he lost his job in year 3. But he didn't mince words. Say something to him in a press conference, and he'll make it personal. And that's just who he was, though, as a coach, as a man. So I just think that for Billy Napier, do I think he's going to be better in 2023? He has to be.
Yeah.
Like he just. But I think too, buddy, you hear as a journalist, you hear different. So when he says something, everybody else just writing something. You're like, wait a minute, what do you mean by that? That you got a different ear, but hey, man, he's getting it. And like I said, it's much to do about nothing now because everybody's record is 0-0. He has not got on the plane to go to Utah.
Yeah.
But I think right now he's realizing if Graham Mertz is one of the guys that's probably going to be going to SEC Day, which he probably is, he's trying to build some level of confidence in him right now because, the players are saying, hey, man, forget what you say about you. What you saying about us?
Yeah.
And that's, I can give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. I don't want to make this about me, please. I really don't. And it's not necessarily going to change anything one way or the other. But just I'll say this. I've said this several times, and you have. I don't have any ulterior motive here. I don't need to write a book with Billy Napier.
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to be his best friend. I just want to be able to know what I'm writing about and what I'm talking about. And it's hard sometimes when you don't know much about the people. But I like Billy Napier. I wish I would get to know him. But let me say some things that have happened. I don't know if it's coincidental or not. This week, for the first time, Billy Napier joined me on Twitter and on our Facebook page. He logged on and liked it, and so he's now a follower on Twitter, which is, by the way, yeah, which is nice. I mean, it's nice. Not that he'd ever listen to it. I'm just saying that was one thing. Coincidentally, he happened to say a couple of things that got my attention, not the least of which was with a quote I just read you from the Panhandle. And then the other one was the thing that he said about Graham Mertz. How many guys have started 32 games? Which is, hey, that's a great point. So I like that. I like what I'm seeing. I don't know if this is a new Billy Napier or what will change. In his heart of hearts, he doesn't think he's going to lose 7 games, as some have predicted, but that's what it. Did you know Florida is ranked as having the toughest schedule in the country? Did you know that?
The toughest. I mean,
yeah, there's a graphic. I put it up the other night. Yeah, the toughest. Yeah.
With the Pac-12, in the Pac-12, when the Pac-12 winners of one side of the Pac-12, but they said that Alabama plays like 6 teams that was even in the bidding for the college football playoff. They said Georgia plays one.
Yeah, they got theirs is a joke, their schedule. But we haven't broken it down yet, but there was this graphic which I ran in my story online of a dude who does this kind of thing. And by the way, about 11 of the top toughest schedules were in the SEC in out of the top 15 or whatever it was. It's ridiculous. But I mean, in addition to that, DraftKings said his over-under was, and that's the betting line. It's not like a bunch of sports writers sitting around, or is 5.5. 5.5. Wow. So now sooner or later you fight back or you don't, And I think I saw a little, I wouldn't say feistiness, but a willingness to address those things and say, give us something like, hey, my quarterback started 32 games. Who else in the country did? And Albert Verde had a good quote on that and a good tweet on that. In fact, let me read it so I can find it. But he was, I think it's a great point. A great point. All right, let me see if I can find that one here. I just wrote it down and put it in my notes. Yeah, he said, here's the quote. He said, Billy Napier mentioned a noteworthy stat this week on Gator quarterback Graham Mertz. He said, I don't think there's another quarterback in the country that's got 32 starts. And I've already said only 5 quarterbacks nationally have made more Power 5 career starts than Mertz. Well, that's something. I mean, he wasn't playing in Little Sisters of the Poor League. He played in the Big Ten, which is not bad, So that was a good thing. And we'll see how it goes. But we're going to have this discussion all summer long. I wrote this column about whether or not, you can buy a championship, and I wrote about money. I don't want to bore you with details. And I wrote about values, and I wrote about how many of us are wealthy in other ways besides money. Certainly not money, but also the fact is that you're not going to buy a championship. You can talk about it all you want to. It has never worked that way. You can go back and look at any sport you want to. George Steinbrenner couldn't do it. He tried. He got a few championships, but not very often. And the Rays with a $22 million pitching staff, by the way. There are 12 people individually who make more than $22 million. And thanks to Dan Bond for that research, the Rays pitching staff, $22 million total. And they have given up the fewest runs in baseball. I don't know. Did that just happen?
Moneyball working down there in old St. Petersburg, even though it's for them Tampa Bay boys. No, you're right, buddy. No, you're right. It's like we talked about last week, buddy, when it comes to Florida, right? Most teams have never seen the glory years of their school. They've never seen, oh, man, remember when they was doing this? Florida started in the 90s. Like, when you talk about when they went Searsburg, boom. Not saying they ain't have success before that, but they had crazy success starting in 1990. Searsburg leaves, this guy runs up, comes in, kind of tailed off a little bit, right? It wasn't what you was grown to used to. Paved way for this dude named Urban, right? He comes through, and once again, I'm talking about some of the best times in Florida history. Then he moves on.
Not some of the best times, the best
The
times, those two guys.
best times.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 national championships in a 3-year span. If you count basketball, it was. I mean, Ohio State hates Florida. I mean, beat them in football and basketball in the same year. Then you tailed off again. You know, you talking about Muschamp, you talking about McElwain. Then Dan Mullen comes, and you like, oh, okay, you started seeing it a little bit.
I thought it was going to be the real deal. I got to tell you, I bought into it.
What it was is, you say you can't buy national championships. You can't buy these championships. You're right. What Billy Napier does extremely well, Dan Mullen hated, and that's recruiting. Dan Mullen was not the recruiting guy. Now X's and O's on that offense, beautiful football. And I think Billy Napier can find a way to be that medium. Meaning Dan Mullen was an offensive guru when it comes to throwing the football. Billy Napier wants to run the football with an adequate quarterback that keeps you out of harm's way, keeps you, ahead of the chains. And he can recruit. Because I will say this, and I hate to give this man credit. Kirby Smart says this. He goes, I don't know how good of a coach I am. Like, I don't know how good, great, but I can recruit. So if I'm taking my scheme and I'm putting the best players to run it, I got a really, really good shot to win games. And that's all recruiting is. That all recruiting is saying, I got a kid in Percy Harvin who plays receiver, but he's so fast, I can motion him from the receiver spot back to the running back spot, and he could be the greatest weapon we've ever seen at the University of Florida, not named Tim Tebow. So I do think that right now, you're right, buddy, our coach is growing a backbone. He better. He has to. But buddy, it makes it much easier for his words to really make an impact when it's showing on the field. Because you know how it is, buddy. When it comes to Nick Saban and Kirby Smart and Dabo Swinney and these coaches that's winning national championships, right? Whatever they say matters now. Because when it comes to their job, they're the best at it. And I don't care who you are, like it, don't like it, right? When Steve Spurrier walked into a room with any coach, college pro, people, that's Steve Spurrier. Because when it came to what he did, who did it better than him?
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, Billy, I love what you're saying. I love what you're growing into. But you can't go 6 and 7. And it's a bottom line business, buddy. He could be the best. Listen, Ron Zook used to say, some of y'all dudes, man, if I had a daughter, man, I wish one of y'all would be the one, marry her. I cannot put you out there on Saturday. And he's being honest. He's saying, look, y'all are great people. You're not great football players. I need you to be a great football player on that field on Saturday because I got to answer to, at the time, Jeremy Foley and the fans, and the coaches and the players if I put y'all out there. So I think right now, buddy, like it's only year 2. Like I said, Brian Kelly is the reason why guys like Billy Napier are feeling the heat because of what he did.
Yeah, and the coach at TCU and all that. They see what can be done. Maybe that was an outlier. I don't know, but it's possible, So we'll see that. Coming up, Franz will be joining us. There's talk today about using Florida Field, Steve's heard of Florida Field, for the Jaguars games, and TIAA Bank field being rebuilt and not playing the Florida-Georgia game there. And they're going to back into this thing yet, man. It's going to happen. It's going to be home and home, Athens and Gainesville. And once it goes there, it ain't never coming back. Anyway, there's a lot of talk about that today. A lot of people kind of upset about it one way or the other. So that's one of the big news stories today going on, along with other things. Like I said earlier, the softball team won. They needed that win. Got a victory over Kentucky, eliminated them. Scholar had a big night, big day, and Dan Bond's got a story online about that. So I know Franz has a few things to say about that. I wonder how he'll like going to Athens. You think he'll like it?
Let me say
you better go with it and do it for protection.
I will say this. The SEC, as we have grown to know it, is coming to, from the usual suspects, it's coming to an end with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma, right?
Yep.
Buddy, Scott Strickland, whoever the AD is at Georgia, Greg Sankey, football fans at large will want nothing more then Florida have to go to Georgia, and Georgia have to go to Florida before you blow it all up. Before you blow it all up, and we go into these pods. Now, do I want to see Florida, Georgia, Florida leave Jacksonville? No, because I think it's bigger than the SEC. I think it's part of the college football fabric, right?
Right.
But don't think it ain't gonna happen without a fight, buddy. Just because you can't play in Jacksonville now. Because Georgia fans already think it's a home game for Florida. It's a home game. So let me tell you what Georgia thinking. Let's move it to the Georgia Dome. Hell no, nope.
No, that ain't happening.
Nope. So I don't. So here's the thing, right? Here's the thing.
Well, Kirby be hypocrite. All he's talked about how playing the game at Athens, how important it was, and it's distracting if you don't to go to Jacksonville. It ain't distracting to go to Atlanta. I mean, come on, man.
I know this, buddy. At the end of the day, it's gonna have to be played in a neutral site, in my opinion. And I would say this: it's the last Saturday in October. We already know. CBS 3:30. We know. So I say, if you can't do it in Atlanta, which you better not, can't do it in Jacksonville, cool. How about doing it in Bank of America Stadium? How about go to Charlotte?
No, Kirby wants the home and home. We've been talking about it now.
Listen. And Kirby knows because he's the back-to-back national champion. People are going to listen.
Be funny if he starts losing when they move the game out of Jacksonville. He went 2 in a row.
I mean, buddy, it's probably going to end up being at Florida or Georgia. I ain't going to like it.
It will be Athens games. All right, stand by for a second. I got to jump in here. Fan Spirit standing by. I got Chris Spears want to get a word in, and I want to get a word for our friends at Meldon Law. Coming right back with Franz Spirit, all right?
Hello, buddy. Chris Spears here from Prestige Auto Sales. We're proud to be the transportation partner for the Orange and Blue Show. And it's our goal here at Prestige Auto Sales to make it both easy and affordable for Gator Nation to own nicer, newer cars, trucks, and SUVs. Our phone number here to the dealership is 694-1234, and you can check us out 24/7 online at chrissaysyes.com. Go Gators.
All right, thanks, Chris. Meldon Law sponsors a lot of things around this community, certainly the scholar athlete stuff, and of course the University of Florida events you can get tickets to. But there are certain events that are special, and I know you got one you sponsor, and let you tell us about Pat Dooley's golf tournament.
Well, everybody knows who Pat Dooley is, great writer for the Gainesville Sun for over 30 years, and he honors his father, Pat Dooley, every year. It's the 28th annual Bob Dooley Invitational Golf Tournament, and all the money raised goes to the Stop Children's Cancer Organization, and they're a terrific group. It's a fun tournament. It's coming up on May 13th at the Ironwood Golf Course.
That's right around the corner here.
Yeah, and we're proud to be a sponsor. We're going to set up the tent and give away neat swag and have a good time and make sure everybody's got a cool beverage.
All right, don't forget, check it out. And again, Jeffrey sponsors lots of things, including the Adult Dooley Golf Tournament, and proud of what you've done in the community, and especially the scholar athlete things. Jeffrey Meldon Law, he won't back down. All right, thanks, Jeffrey. Let's go on to the Orange and Blue room and see if we can find our cohort here. He's always munching ice somewhere. Let's go see if we can find him. There he is. The Iron Duke is here now. Hello, Franz. Say good evening to our colleague, Mr. Ben Troupe.
Ben should be very, very happy right now because the Poodlettes just got beaten by South Carolina in the Southeastern Conference softball tournament.
You already know what it is.
Mm-hmm. And got taken down by the number 10.
Ben has a bat signal, our bulldog signal goes up in the sky when they lose the game. Comes to his house, he can look up there and see it out of the back window. Flashing, Bulldogs lose. Makes his night every time. All right, we lost Ben. Francis, a lot of talk about moving the game. Ben and I were talking about moving the game out of Jacksonville, Florida, Georgia for the construction stuff. I know you're on it. What do you know about that?
They're going to renovate the TIAA Bank Field. They say starting in 2025, 2 years is what they have targeted. And it took them 2 years to build a brand new one. So I don't see why it would take them more than 2 years to renovate. But the probability is, I would say it's about 98% certain that this will go home and home. The only real question out of this whole thing is, where will the Jaguars play their home games? And there's only two stadiums that they're capable of playing in, would be at Florida Field. Well, actually, they could play it in Tallahassee, but that wouldn't work well for them.
I don't think that work right now.
Gainesville, it's either going to be Gainesville or Orlando. Yeah. My guess is it will be in Orlando. That stadium sits there. It's got artificial turf. So it wouldn't be hard to do it. It's got skyboxes. It seats 67,000 people already. So not that great of a drop down from what they draw playing in Jacksonville. So that would be my guess. And the Florida Georgia game will go home and home. You can bet the ranch on that.
Absolutely going to be home and home. That's what Kirby's been fighting for the whole time. Like Ben and I were saying before you came on, it'd be really funny if they went home and home and Georgia got beat at home and lost both games. That would be kind of poetic justice. So, yeah. So that something tells me this is kind of part of the plan the whole time. That was going to be their excuse. So they're going to wait till they get this in. So
there's Georgia fan. What Georgia fans would like to see would be the game to go Jacksonville 1 year, Atlanta 1 year, Gainesville 1 year, and Athens 1 year. They'd like to see it on a four school rotation like that. And personally, keep it in Jacksonville. That's where it's been all the time, the whole time, and just play it there. Now somebody just, Ben Troupe. Somebody says, rotate the SEC championship. I wouldn't mind seeing the SEC championship rotate, say, to New Orleans 1 year and then to Atlanta the next. That wouldn't bother me at all.
I just had to check real fast on the score. It's the ninth inning, and the Rays lead the Yankees 8-2. The Yankees finally scored. Just want to report in on that. Ben, I'm sorry. I know your Rays are struggling a little bit.
But. I mean, it's funny. It's funny, friends. When this is your show, the Rays can sneak in here of anything. The Rays can sneak in any time on the show. But
it's news. It's news.
That's what happens when you host the show.
That's right. Name on the door. Name on the door. Right there. There you go.
You pick the topics. If it's the Franz Beard show, the name Georgia would never be mentioned except when the Gators beat them or they lose in something.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's the deal on that. I watched the Braves game of the night. Acuna's back and watched a little bit. They got some good ball players.
Let me say this though. However, today I spent some time with a friend of mine from Honduras named Rafael Mendez, who's a banker down there. And he came here in 1980. My mom taught him how to speak English. When he came here from Honduras, couldn't speak a word of English. But he spent 2 years. He spent a year at Santa Fe, then 2 years at UF. Then he transferred to Georgia. And he told me today, he says, I transferred to Georgia because it was easy. I could graduate there.
I don't blame him.
And I made the comment. I said, easier than Florida. He says easier than Santa Fe.
There you go. That's pretty easy for sure. Speaking of baseball, Franz, update us on these the struggling Gator baseball team, which they got to snap out of it this weekend. Big series with Vandy. Although Vandy's been having a bit of trouble too. They've lost a bunch of games.
Well,
they update us on.
Well, here's the thing. Everybody's saying Florida's struggling. Well, Vandy went on the road, lost 2 out of 3 to Auburn last week. LSU went on the road. Vandy lost 2 out of 3 to who did they lose to? I forget who they lost to, but to Alabama. LSU went on the road, lost 2 out of 3 to Auburn. Florida goes on the road and loses 2 out of 3 to the Aggies. Mm-hmm. South Carolina goes on the road and got swept by, Tennessee went on the road and lost 2 out of 3 to Georgia. Are we noticing a little pattern there? Okay. Now, Florida is home this weekend. Florida is really good at home. They're not very good on the road. Vanderbilt is not very good on the road. They're like 29-4 at home, but they lose a lot of ball games on the road. They're coming here this weekend for 3 games. Florida needs to win all 3 because here's the deal. That would put Florida at 18 SEC wins. 19 probably gets you a top 8 national seed. 20 definitely will. So Florida's got to get to 20 SEC wins, which would mean sweeping this weekend and either sweeping this weekend or next weekend and winning 2 out of 3 in the other one, which would be at Kentucky. And Kentucky is the one that swept South Carolina last weekend. So it's the SEC is pure nuts, and it's kind of like SEC softball right now. Yeah. Georgia is the number 2 seed, and they just got taken out by the number 10 seed, South Carolina, which won all of 3 games in SEC play last year. And they've come back now, and they're in the SEC semifinals. So
too much math for me. I can't figure it out, man. It's just too much math.
It's a really difficult, you name the sport, and it's a really difficult league.
Yeah.
We got the SEC track and field meet starting this weekend, started today, actually.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, this is going to be wild and woolly. Florida is the number 3 men's team, the number 2 women's team, and this is nationally. And the Florida women, Talitha Diggs, they've got her, and she's
Scholar Athlete of the Year, right?
Yeah. Jasmine Moore, who has won.
We met Jasmine. We were in Gainesville, France. You and I were in. We went to the Florida Victorious. Hey, can I just jump in real fast? You got just a couple of people who are big fans of ours. This comes from Rob Brown. He says, we're watching the Buddy Martin show at the farm. That's the Cherry Farm in Memphis, I guess it is, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's in Arkansas. Sorry. Absolutely great show. All 3 of you will make a Gator fan out of anyone who watches first class, and we appreciate everything you do. So we appreciate that, and all 3 of us are on that show quite often. So let's give our partners up there a hand, and I'm sure you guys will be on there. You may have already been on it already. Let's see if I can get my applause up here. Stand by.
You said a hand. You said a hand. That's more than one.
There you go. All right. You mentioned track, and see if we can get it. All right. Sorry, folks, for the interruption. Got a little bit of a jolt there from somewhere and got knocked out. Franz is back there. I don't know if Ben's going to make it back on or not, as Loren was trying. Let's see. Here's Ben. Here's Ben, so we can get it. All right, we're back. And I think Loren's trying to get on. Last time when I tried to click him on, we lost everything. So we'll wait a second. And Loren, stand by for a second. We'll see. 4 might be too many tonight, the way things have been acted up on here. Go ahead with that train of thought, Franz.
Well, this is Florida's track team has Jasmine Moore, and they got Talitha Diggs, and just Sterling. What's her? Her name's
Sterling Thompson's the baseball player.
Yeah, well, Florida has.
Yeah, we're getting
has a real shot. Women probably have the better shot to win it. The women probably have the better shot to win it.
Yeah. All right.
Here.
Yeah.
Men finished fourth at the SECs, but then won the Nationals. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be kind of interesting to see what goes on here with this. I think Florida's got a legitimate chance to win it, but I believe, realistically speaking, I think Mouse is going to probably try to get the Gators prepped to win the national championship. Mm-hmm. I think he'll be happy with the top 3 finish in both men and women at the SECs, but I think he is really gearing this up to win the nationals. You got to remember something. They went into the indoor nationals predicted to finish outside the top 10, and they finished 4th. And this is a team that is built more for the outdoors than they are for the indoors.
All right, the track guys here, and we'll let Ben go because obviously you've been on a while. Then, like Dan Bond said, we have gremlins tonight, so we'll have to deal with that. So good evening, Loren. We're talking about your sport there, buddy.
How you doing? Yeah, I mean, SECs are underway. We had quite a few qualifiers in the women's 800 with Imogen Barrett and Vanessa Watson, and then Franz was talking about Sterling Lester, who is in the heptathlon, and then obviously Robert Gregory, Ja'Cory Patterson in the men's side did well in the 200. I haven't checked the women's 200, but you got Jasmine Moore and Claire Bryant. Obviously, they miss the points. From an SEC standpoint, and even nationals, the 18 to 20 points that you could get from Anna Hall last year. But I agree with Franz as much as they would love to be SEC champs. I think like Franz said as well, where points become a premium a little bit more in the nationals. I think Coach Holloway is definitely kind of keeping his eyes on the ultimate prize with the national title. Most definitely. I would say Arkansas.
What are the odds? How are the odds that he would get a chance to win that again?
I mean, pretty high. I mean, I would say that, like Franz said, the men are going to be tough because, if you think last year, it was kind of the improbable double by Joseph Fahnbulleh that kind of elevated the men, whereas the women are a little bit deeper, a little bit more diverse in the way that they can score points. They, like I said, they have Jasmine Moore and Claire Bryant, who are easily capable of going 1 and 2 in the long jump, and then Jasmine Moore could double again with the triple in the long jump, and then you have some other options there outdoors at the nationals, which gives you a little bit more. I mean, I would say the women probably have, because Arkansas is still pretty deep. I would say the women probably have a 60% chance. The men probably 25 to 30, maybe, if that. It's going to be tough.
It's amazing, Franz, all the national championships and other sports. The excellence is still there at Florida in so many sports. Tennis team, I guess, has had another great year. I can't keep up. Golf team, all of a sudden, winning an SEC, and now track coming back on. Women's softball needs to turn it around a little bit, Loren. Good piece tonight by Dan Bond on Gator Bay about it. And but even on a year that feels like it's been an off year, friends, still a pretty good year.
We've had 5 SEC championships, and we've won the American in lacrosse. Don't count out this baseball team because, you look at this. Vanderbilt's at 17 wins. At 16 wins is LSU. Then Florida's there at 15 wins along with Arkansas. So you got 3 teams right there that are very, very capable of 4 teams that are very, very capable of winning the SEC. And it's all going to come down to that last week and weekend. Vanderbilt is going to have Arkansas on the road. Georgia's got to go. Arkansas is going to be on the road to Vanderbilt. Georgia is going to be playing host to LSU, and Georgia at home is formidable. I don't know what it is about playing at Foley Field, but they're really good there. And if Goldstein's arm is good enough to go, that's one win you can count on. Charlie Goldstein is a terrific pitcher. So I think Florida, realistically speaking, could win it. But here's the deal. If Vanderbilt wins 3 out of 6, they are at 20. For Florida to get to 20 wins, Florida's got to win 5 out of 6. For LSU, they got to win 4 out of 6. So it's really going to come down to a dogfight there at the end. So, you look at this and up and down, everybody says, wow, it's been a rotten year. Since when? I mean, my gosh, track and field could win 2 national championships. I think it's very possible. Baseball, if they can throw some strikes, I know they could win it. And if people want to pitch to Skylar Wallace, she could probably hit the Gators.
How about that? She had a heck of a game today. Hit one out. Someone said, I read the quote, that she might be the best player in softball. Another great year for her, and too bad. Maybe they can get jump started here and get going in the right direction.
She will be back next year too, so I'm told. She will be back next year. Take her COVID year.
That is true.
To come in and play with Keegan Rothrock, Ava Brown, the 2 best pitchers maybe to come along in the last 8 to 10 years. I mean, my gosh, they're unbelievable.
And Mia Williams.
Mia Williams. The Hover Male girl from Texas who is a big time power hitter as well. They got a kid coming out of California as well. And don't sit on this outfielder that's playing down for the Gels girl's dad down in Lakewood Ranch. She can flat out fly, as if they need a little more speed with Skylar Wallace and Kendra Falby and Katie Kistler, and then you throw somebody like that in there. Florida will be loaded next year. This is a year that Tim is, I know it just, every loss eats him alive, but I know that he's looking up to next year and thinking, paybacks are going to be hell, boys and girls.
Yeah, he you know him pretty well too, Loren. He's not a guy that takes his losing very well at all, and so for sure. We had a conversation. I hope we'd get Ben on here for this, but I guess we're not going to be able to. A conversation that I started out tonight talking about money, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. And basically, what I wrote about today in the column, not to just stick to the column per se, but about the fact that you get right down to it. You ask the question, can money buy you a championship?
Yeah.
I don't think it can. It can contribute to it. And the premise of the column is there still a place for good old-fashioned values where you believe in your team and teamwork and the camaraderie and there's a bond and, you're not selfish. The greatest teams I know I've been around are the ones that are unselfish. They're the ones that they wanted to all be great players, but they realized they couldn't be and they want their teammates to do good. And so I linger, I think about this because as I was reading an old column of mine that somebody sent me on Ray Graves when he died, remembering I'd forgotten, you know how much money he made his first year at Florida, Franz?
$19,000.
That's correct, $19,000. Most Power 5 starters make $19,000 a year now, let alone coaches. Now, I know you can't compare apples and oranges, but the whole money factor, I got into the fact that, again, the Rays have a $22 million pitching staff. There were 12 players in the league making more than that as an individual. and you start looking at values and what makes a team. And you both been around teams, and Loren, you coached them. I guess it can work. I think the NIL could help, but as essentially, what has to permeate is the bond, this integrity in the team in the locker room. They play for each other, and that they're not corrupt. They don't take stuff on the side. They're good teammates, and you build that bond. And the thing about it is, and I will say this, and Franz, you've been a lot more positive than I have, and Loren and I have not been as positive. I had to push back a little bit and look at it. So, okay, now what am I talking about here? What is wrong with Billy Napier? Really nothing wrong with him. So I decided to come off the fence a little bit tonight in my column and really ask the question, he may be on the clock, but it's ticking in his favor, and he could fix this thing. And I told Ben earlier tonight, this week has been a good week for him because I've seen two things out of him. Number one, he stood up for his quarterback. Zach Oliverdi had a column saying, who else started 32 games in the country? I guess 5. What about it? Right? And that's one. That's a great point. We tend to forget about that. I know, Franz, you've been more positive than I have about it. Then he talked about other things involving the team. And he was up in the Panhandle and spoke and he said, we're going to be really good next year or whatever. And Franz, if there's one phrase old Gators know, it's next year. So that next year is going to be 2024.
My grandfather went to his grave thinking that the Gators might win an SEC championship in football or basketball. My dad saw us win one, but had it taken away. So I know how this goes, and we tend to put so much into this thing that, okay, it's all or nothing here at the University of Florida. And that's been, what was it that your buddy Dan Jenkins said, the arrogance of Notre Dame, the tradition
of Alabama, the arrogance of Alabama and the tradition, I think it wasn't tradition.
Of Wake Forest.
Wake Forest,
yeah.
It's in one of my books back there, yeah.
All the tradition of Wake
Forest. That's how it was before 1990.
Well, it was. And, I'll never forget, I'm on a recruiting trip with Charlie Pell, and we're on Ben Hill Griffin's jet, and we're flying to Richmond, and Charlie Pell starts talking about winning a national championship. Not an SEC. I mean, I've been hearing about, I'm sitting there geared up the idea that, okay, maybe the Gators might win an SEC championship because they've never done it. And here's this little guy sucking on a Chesterfield cigarette, and all the way down to the nubs there, his fingers were permanently yellow. And he's saying, we're going to win that. He says, may not be me who wins it, but we're going to set the foundation, and there's going to be national championships one year.
Yeah, he did.
My mind was blown by that idea.
Yeah. You're a very good point. And I want to ask Ben, and you've been a Gator fan for a while. How did you come about it, and why, and what time did you buy in, and what was going on in Florida when you decided from Dayton, Ohio, you were going to be a Gator?
The visor, man. I mean, for me, it was I remember like it was yesterday. It was the first SEC SEC title game, and I watched it from start to finish. And my good friend Shane Matthews was taking it to the maybe one of the best defenses in college football history, and giving them everything they needed. And he made one mistake that cost him the game. But I mean, just watching the way Florida operated, just the offense, the way the Spurrier handled his players, his quarterbacks, and I was hooked from then on. So I mean, I always tell Shane when I talk to him, I say, I became a Florida fan probably at one of your lowest moments as a player. So we kind of go back and forth about that. But I mean, I was never, my parents are from West Virginia, so I was never raised a a Buckeye fan, or they didn't dress us in Ohio State or West Virginia stuff, and we were kind of left to our own vices to find our own teams. Yeah, my father was a Florida State fan, loved Bobby Bowden, and so sometimes we go with Dad, and sometimes we go against him, and that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah, that's good. So let me ask you guys: can that ever happen again here in Gainesville? Can those days come back? Can they? Loren, can it happen? Franz, can it happen?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And we
I think your recruiting base.
Yeah.
I think your recruiting base is far too fertile. Yeah. I mean, I think your recruiting base is far too fertile. If you can kind of follow, where Ohio State really turned the corner, and France will know this, when Jim Tressel kind of got away from where John Cooper made a mistake, was kind of antagonizing the high school football coaches in the state of Ohio.
I remember that.
And what Jim Tressel was able to do is kind of bring them back in the fold. And really, since that time, Ohio State has kind of taken off. Billy Napier's kind of taken that same blueprint, and with a recruiting hotbed that's as fertile as the state of Florida, and I think they'll get a handle on the changing landscape with NIL. And like you said before, I'm a lot more impressed with the Florida assistants right now than I am Billy Napier. So I think, and sometimes that's what makes you a coach, is having good people around you. And I really think he has some really solid people around him. So, yeah, I think it could happen for sure.
Franz, you get the last word.
Well, I'll agree 100% with what Loren just said about football. And I'll throw this in about basketball. Ernest Uday, who was at Kansas this year, 6'11", 255, out of Dr. Phillips. He's in the transfer portal, and I would say it's probably about 90% certain he's going to wind up here at the University of Florida. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a 7'1", a 6'11", a 6'10", this 6'11" kid out of Australia can flat out
big
play.
Guys. Yeah.
E.J. Jarvis out of Yale is a stretch guy. And all of a sudden, you got a front court that's set, and they're going to either get they're either going to get Tyron Lawrence, or they're going to get the kid out of Marshall. And either one of those kids are lethal scorers that can balance the floor. Now all of a sudden you got Kugel and Will Richard, and let's say Andrew Thomas from Marshall, or Tyron Lawrence, and Walter Clayton at the point. And Denzel, Torian Green keeps telling me, don't sit on Denzel Aberdeen. He says he can flat out play. Didn't get a chance to last year, but he's going to be a player. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. And this kid, Deaton Thomas, who's probably the second or third best point guard in the country, who's out in Las Vegas. Well, he's going to make his announcement on Mother's Day. And it's going to be between, UNLV is going to be one of the teams that he's thinking about. But everybody's saying he's going to come here. And the reason why is because he's known Torian all his life. His dad, Torian's dad, Big Sid, and Deaton Thomas's dad played at UNLV for Tark the Shark together. Carlin Hartman was an assistant coach there at UNLV. And
all about the relationships.
And that's, you made the point there, buddy. And that's what's the difference. That's why I say we're closer to it coming back than what anybody might believe. Because what Billy has really done is he has rebuilt the relationships. The high school relationships are really, really strong here. We are in IMG, and we've never been in IMG. Dan Mullen couldn't sniff the door to get there. And I love Dan, but Dan couldn't even get in the doorstep there. And Billy Napier's already gotten a couple players there, and he's probably going to get 2 or 3 more.
I once suggested, and not jestingly, that they hire a guy and put him down there full time. You know, they do nothing but just go out and observe and talk to neighbors. And you can't recruit 24/7, but you can talk to people around it. So I don't know. You're right, Franz. That's true. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a takeoff. That's a takeoff from a line on Blazing Saddles.
Okay.
Slim Pickens talking to the Attorney General of the state. You know, out there. You know, Hedley Lamar.
I'm afraid to go there, but anyway, great job tonight, guys. Sorry about I lost our mate tonight with the Wi-Fi, and Loren, good to see you again. Franz, thank you. Good job.
Yes, sir.
And anything we should know about what you're writing tomorrow, Franz? Do you have that written, or what's going on there?
Oh, I'm gonna whip something together. I've got, I think, 10 hours sleep since.
That's okay.
Sunday.
I'm just asking. I'm just asking. All right.
So
I know we got a softball piece, and we got a piece from Matt and Kyle.
I'm
anyway,
going to be writing about who's in and who's out of the portal right now, and
all right,
and you know what the latest on there, and it's just going to be a short piece, but it'll be informative, and people will say,
people always want to know where's Franz. I got to get my thoughts today, so they'll be waiting for it.
It's $9.99 a month, and they'll say they got their 99 cents worth today.
Yeah. And by the way, it reminds me of the days when I used to work in towns like St. Pete and Charlotte, where the oldest people in the world were, where there were old people like me, standing on their front porch waiting for the paper to come. And if it wasn't there by 6 a.m., they were ticked off. They want their paper right then. So same thing now, except that people waiting for your thoughts. So don't keep them waiting.
I used to bring a newspaper every Tuesday to Wolfie's in Miami Beach, and this guy named Meyer Lansky wanted me.
Oh yeah, I heard him.
Paid me $5 to bring him a newspaper because I'd go there and eat breakfast.
Yeah, good connection. All right, Francis, let me tell the world about the Red Star, and I'll say good night and have a good weekend, fellas. Thanks a lot. Good job from Loren and Franz on Orange and Blue Bloods Thursday, and to Ben Troupe too, by the way. Sorry we lost him. So all right, good night. All right, so let me tell you about Red Star, the special folks over there. Very fortunate to have them as sponsors, supporters, and friends, and they do a wonderful job in our community. In addition to having a downtown presence and being stakeholders in our downtown, they also are looking out after our health. And how they do that is they gather information that's pertinent to our health, and they send it off to the people who are finding treatments for us. Essentially, they have a high-quality, patient-centered clinical facility, and they have cutting-edge technology for research trials on things like Alzheimer's, dementia, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraines, and fibromyalgia, along with many other conditions that affect us here in the community. They get that data and they send it off to places like the prominent pharmaceutical and biomedical companies they partner up with throughout the medical industry. So if you'd like to know more about how you might take part in this or know more about what they do, go to redstar.net, check out their invitations to certain people who qualify for these. In some cases, there can be time and travel compensated for. Go on redstar.net and check it out. Red Star Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Have a great weekend. We're back on Monday with lots more from the Buddy Martin Show and all of our team. Good night.